Hey y'all, welcome back to the Let's Talk About Things podcast. This is episode 6 and it is the week of Halloween. So we have kind of a fun, special Halloweenish episode for y'all, and as you're probably watching right now, you know that the title of this episode is Dating Horror Stories. So that is going to be the main thing that we focus on. But before we get into that, Lacey's got a little fun fact for you, just a little Halloween fun fact that some of you might find interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that's super interesting, but I was 28 years old when I found this out, so I'm going to say it anyway. So did you know that candy corn is called candy corn because if you stack it, it looks like corn on the cob? And to give people a visual so that they can like kind of see what I'm talking about. I don't know if they can see that on my phone, but yeah, probably not. There we go. See, it looks like, when you stack it up, it looks like corn. So we don't have candy corn to try this with. Usually, I don't know, sometimes it's laying around, but I want to try that eventually because it's technically, I mean, you kind of think about it, it's the kernel of corn.
The more you know.
So fun fact about that, I don't have anything about why it's called Halloween, none of that, because I don't care.
Yeah, that is where my geeky brain loves to go down the rabbit hole, and it has to do with All Hallows Eve, and there's a whole history there. But that is not why y'all are tuning in. Y'all are tuning in because if you've been paying attention to social media, you know that we asked all of you to send us your dating horror stories. Just horrible dates gone wrong, creeps that you went out with, just red flag, whatever you got, we wanted to hear it, and we have printed them out. We have put them in Frankenstein's head here.
We have a bowl, a Frankenstein bowl.
Yeah, for those of you who are just listening, we have a bowl and it's Frankenstein's head. Yes. And all of the horror stories are in his head. We're kind of calling this the bowl of horror. So that is what y'all are here to tune in for. We're excited because we certainly enjoyed all the responses we got.
Yeah.
And then after we go through these, we'll share a few of our own. We're going to play fair. We're going to share some of our own as well. And yeah, let's just get into, I'm excited to get into this. I'm excited.
You draw, then I draw, and we'll talk. So all of these are anonymous, and thank you to everybody who did submit it. There were some really good ones in there. Some, we don't know if we'll be able to read all of them, but yeah, these were some good ones. People had some interesting stories, some that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's kind of serious, and I hope everything worked out, but we didn't get further into it.
Yeah, we will keep it anonymous. We're not going to rat anybody out.
Okay.
So,
first one.
All right, here we go. Oh.
And we wrote them as exactly how it was typed, not like...
We have not edited these at all.
Kind of what...
All right, it says, went on a few dates with a cop, and when I told him I wasn't interested, he proceeded to stalk me. Oh God, there's no one worse to stalk you than a cop who has resources. Oh my God, I wish these weren't anonymous because I'd love to call y'all and be like, explain. Like, what do you mean?
That's wild.
That sounds pretty, because a cop's got resources.
That's what I was thinking, like he has the ability to stalk you, so
oh my God.
That's pretty.
And then if it becomes a problem, who do you file a complaint with? The cop?
You'd have to, I don't know.
Wow, I really hope you're okay, and that, I mean, I guess you are, or you wouldn't have shared this story, but that's pretty wild.
Cool.
Gosh. All right, a good stalker story. We love that.
Okay, here we go. Number 2. Ooh, I got 2. Okay. Sat in a pizza on first date.
Oh, how? I have so many questions.
I feel like that one has a backstory and a follow-up, but
and was there a second date with that person after you sat and said pizza?
Gosh, we should have been, but yeah, I know. Which I get it. Some people don't want to share too much, but that is pretty bad. Why? How would you sit in a pizza, and why would that
I don't
occur?
know. Like, it's all of these. I'm going to have questions, but I love it.
Yeah.
So, here we go.
Number 3.
Okay, my date was so bad and didn't talk that the bartender at the restaurant brought me a margarita on the house. Oh, wow.
That means they saw it from afar. That's when you know it's bad, when a bystander is like, girl, here's this.
Yeah, you're gonna need
You're
this.
like, this is extra shots.
I think we've all been there. Another round, please.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we have. I've never been given like a drink on the house, but again, I don't think they've ever witnessed it.
Yeah.
So if it's being witnessed, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's bad. Wow. I think I would have feigned an emergency or illness and gotten the heck out of there.
That's when you fake that your tummy hurts.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
I want to go through all of these. We
actually didn't have
I can't
too many to
resist.
where we can't, so I'm gonna just break.
We can
these
do it
up a
all.
bit. Okay.
Unless we got to elaborate.
Okay. This one date picked me up in his new diesel, then proceeded to say he couldn't afford dinner, so we stopped at a gas station for food. He was a well-paid welder who lived at home, no rent.
Oh, like lived at home with his parents?
I'm gonna assume so. That's actually pretty bad.
What?
I mean, okay,
Oh
here's the deal.
my
If it's a new
God.
diesel, like, did he spend all of his money, or is he just a cheap ass?
I'm going with the second one.
Yeah, because at the same
Probably.
time, it's like, depending on what stage of a welder he is, because there's different stages, then it depends. But they're still pretty well paid, I think.
But I would say, I don't care what your job is or how much money you make. Don't ask a girl
You
out
take them
if
to
you're
the
not
gas
prepared to pay for dinner. Like, it doesn't have to be fancy,
He
but
said, girl, I'm about to take you for the night.
At least take her to-
Let's go take you to the freaking...
Like,
let's take
oh
you to
my
the Quick
God.
Trip.
Get some Allsup's burritos. Oh my
I can just see him
God.
pulling into the Quick Trip and being like, so you want anything? And then she's like,
Oh my
what?
God. Bro,
Probably all dressed. That's not funny. She's probably sitting...
bro, Chili's has 2 for $20 deals, and sometimes they even come with
No,
dessert.
McDonald's has 5 for 5.
Yeah, Whataburger, bro. Come on.
Oh,
Like,
okay. I think at that point he was probably just wanting a booty call.
yeah, that's what that sounds
Yeah.
like. I'm sorry. Whoever sent that in, I would have gotten an Uber, gone home, and stopped at Whataburger, then gone home.
I would have commented on how shitty his diesel was.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
All right,
Okay.
moving on.
Here we go. Oh my God.
What?
My ex tried to run me over.
Okay.
Oh my!
That's horror.
Wow,
That's
that's a true
That's
horror
the horrible
story.
right there. That's
Oh my
pretty bad.
gosh! I'm thankful this person did not succeed. I imagine. Oh
Obviously,
my
for
God!
typing it.
Wow.
That's pretty bad. That's a horror right there. Then that guy
Dang.
needs to go see psychiatric help.
I hope that person is not in your life anymore.
Seriously.
It's an ex, so yeah, they need to stay that way. Wow, that is a bad one.
Do I have 2? Okay. My date wanted to bring her aunt on the date, so I brought my guy friend. This is from a guy.
So.
And thank you to the men that contributed.
Yeah, this is from a dude.
Yeah, my date wanted to bring her aunt on the date, so I brought my guy friend.
Yeah, what do you do?
I wonder if the guy friend and the aunt hit it off.
I would have said, you know what? Let's reschedule
Yeah.
for when your aunt does not.
I mean, that's sweet of her to include, because maybe she thought this guy was a weirdo, or maybe she was worried. You never know in this.
So bring your friend, not your aunt.
I don't
That's weird. Yeah.
All of these are like horror weird, but not too much horror, thank goodness. People haven't had like something.
Yeah,
super-
the ex about to run me over. That's pretty bad. Or the
Yeah.
cop stalking. Okay. Next. Let me see. Lacey hand wrote these, and
Sorry.
The serial killer handwriting goes with our theme for the
Hey, I was always told that no one interesting has good handwriting. So,
I'm interesting.
well, I don't know. I got told that as a child because my handwriting has always been chicken scratch, and I will never fix it.
Yeah,
It
so
is
if I
what it is.
pause, I swear I can read. It's just taking me a minute to decipher the hieroglyphics. Anyway, my penny pincher date told me that if I wanted steak, I could only order water with it. Again,
So,
like, why are you inviting
he's
someone on a
basically saying,
date?
I have like a limit, so you can't get more than like a certain. That's pretty bad. Why ask her on the date then?
That's what I'm
If you ask
saying.
somebody on a date, you should be prepared that even if they order the lobster, you ask them on the date.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean,
it depends where you decided to take them, of course, but a steak.
Yeah, if you know you have a certain
Steak and
budget.
sweet tea or a steak and a margarita or whatever, that's pretty bad.
We're not okay.
Come on, men.
We're not trying to sound elitist, like, oh, you better have a bunch of money for a date. No, we're just saying
It's common sense,
if
though.
you invite someone on the date, they are expecting to be taken care of for the evening. That's the whole point. You're trying to woo them. You're trying to court them, right? So if you can't afford an expensive steak, take her to Chili's. Like I said, they got 2 for $20. That was my husband's and my first dinner date. I
Chili's
kid
is
you
good.
not.
Do you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of that scene in White Chicks where he goes, for the lady, perhaps a salad. And she goes, perhaps not. She goes, I'll have the steak smothered in onions, a rack of ribs.
I'd have done the same thing. So, yeah, I don't know, because that's just weird.
Okay. Started dating this girl whose criminal ex threatened to kill me. From a guy.
Oh my God.
Criminal ex? Yeesh.
I have questions.
Okay, so guys, we've got some guys having some horror stories here.
Yeah,
That's
I love
pretty
it.
bad.
I love it.
Thank God that didn't happen because he's clearly here.
Yes. Wow. Dang. Wow. Again, I have questions that I can't ask, so I just have to leave it. This says, before we went on a date, my date stopped by his house to shit, and all I heard was loud grunting. Wow, you can't make this stuff up.
He probably had like the worst lunch and it finally caught up, or he had the nervous gut thing.
Wow. Okay. Was there a second date? That's, again, I want to call all of y'all up.
If there was, I'd as a joke, I would bring Tums and just slide it across the table. Be like, hey, I just, party favor.
I mean, if you gotta go, you gotta go. I understand.
But before the date, you go to pick her up, and then you go back to your house to poop, and then you can't even like put the air thingy on so you don't hear. And she had to I can just imagine her sitting there like legs crossed, just waiting, going, "Oh my God."
Yeah, what do? Do you offer help? Do you stay silent?
You need an air freshener?
Do you act like you don't hear it? What's your move in that moment?
I would just be like, I'm gonna wait in the truck.
And I apologize, y'all. There is some profanity. We are Christian, but we cuss a little, and bear with us if that's not your vibe.
I'm learning.
This ain't your podcast.
I never claim to be perfect. So.
No, gosh,
Okay.
no.
Next one. Okay, went on a date with a guy who pulled out a shroom chocolate bar mid-date.
Just in the middle of the restaurant?
I believe it was with the day and age that we live in. I so believe they thought that was normal.
A shroom, not a pot chocolate bar.
No, I guess I don't even know what that is, but I'm assuming that's what that is.
A shroom chocolate bar in the middle, just like this. What?
I don't know. That was all that was said in the thing. That was all that was put.
Oh my gosh. What do you do?
I would say put that away, or one, I'd be like, if that's what you do, I'm leaving. I personally just don't mess with that stuff. Or
I don't have time for illegal activity.
But if they're about it, then it just depends. But if you're not about it, then I'd probably leave.
And what was the lead up to that moment, I wonder?
Do you like chocolate?
Were they sitting there having this discussion about something completely different, and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way.
Probably like, do you like chocolate?
All
right,
interesting.
Last
one in our bowl of horror, and then we will share some personal stories. Here we go. Let's see. My date's best friend showed up on the date. That's similar to the aunt showing up one. What is this?
I guess they're afraid to go alone.
Well, then maybe this sounds like they showed up unannounced.
Oh, then maybe. I don't know. There wasn't much to it. A lot of it, I understand, is very vague, maybe to protect identity, but...
Or just plan the double date in the first place. Say, hey, since we don't want any pressure this first date, why don't we have a double date with my friend?
Well, luckily, this is what dating horror stories is all about. We're going to give some advice on these in a little bit. But
some of them I don't know where to start.
Thank you for sending those in. Those were pretty good. Some were horror, and some were just weird and red flag, but I feel like that all kind of encompasses each other. So, yay.
Yeah.
But Holly, let's start with you.
Oh,
Do you
God.
have a couple dating horror stories or weird stories from your pre-marriage days?
I will admit this is tough because before I was married, I was a bit of a serial monogamist. I had like 2 or 3, no, just 2 serious relationships that were long-term, almost back-to-back. So I only dated a little bit in between those. One that I can remember from college, I agreed to go on a date with this guy, and everything was going fine. And then all of a sudden, he tells me that his like greatest passion and hobby in life is kites. Like,
Kites.
let's go fly a kite.
Like
Kites.
kite wars?
Like on a string, up in the air in the wind. Kite. Like, I mean, this guy proceeds to go on a whole monologue of his love for kites, shows me pictures of himself flying kites on a beach.
Did you date this guy?
Not very long. I think it was one date. I don't think we had a second date.
Did he ask you if you wanted to go fly a kite with him?
Yeah, he was like, we should fly kites sometime. And I'm like, I don't
You know, I would have taken full advantage of that request, and I would have bought the biggest kite I could find and just fly that sucker. Make sure to put some gloves on so you don't get string burn, because that's a real concern. And I would have just I would have just been like, here's my giant kite. Let's fly some kites.
He was such a nice guy. I remember.
It's better than probably doing something sketchy. Like,
but it was just so, I don't know that that's a horror story, but it's one of those moments where you're like, wow, he's truly passionate about this, and I don't want to like squash his dreams, but this is really strange. I've never seen, I mean, if you're into kites, I apologize.
Yeah.
I just didn't know that was such a big deal,
Well,
but apparently there's like competitions, and I mean, people get into it.
well, you never know with people. I mean, whatever, there's the hobbies all the time.
But have y'all ever had those moments on a date where you're just so surprised you don't know what to say or where to take the conversation? That was one of those moments. And he was a very nice guy. We met in the, I went to Texas Tech, and they have a big UC, University Commons, where all the students congregate. I think that's where I met him one time, maybe eating, and agreed to go on a date, but it got weird because...
Well, you didn't get to the kite flying, and I bet that was where
No.
y'all's love journey would have started. Kite flying.
I mean, I did. Yeah, so that's one that I can think of that was kind of bizarre.
Any other ones?
Oh, you want me to have another one right
Well,
off
I
the
mean,
bat?
if you don't
Oh.
have one, just curious as to yours.
I'm trying to think if I had, I mean, I obviously had 2 long-term relationships before my husband that both ended badly. They both What is eded? They both ended in cheating situations, which is horrific, you know, on a serious note, but I'm trying to think of something more humorous that actually happened. I don't know. I might have to think about it. What's one of yours? I'll think about it and come back.
Oh, well, I mean, I was trying to think about this as we were also creating the poll, because I can say I haven't had something so terrifying to where I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta leave. Luckily, I've had some interesting dates with guys. I've had guys make me question, like, okay, this is an interesting fella. But one, I think, and you've obviously known my dating history, but one that I can think of was was that one date I had in Fort Worth with the tall dude. The extremely tall dude.
Oh,
he was.
yes.
It was just. He was very disrespectful. The way that he went about that date was just very much almost possessive and controlling.
On a first
date, and it was very weird. And so that one, I was kind of like, first date, I just wanted to leave. That was probably the only date I ever wanted to get the heck out of there, because I couldn't even. I mean, it was to the point where I was like, all right, this is no longer fun. I don't want to be a part of this. But I haven't had anything super crazy. I think another one I can think of is the guy that talked too much when we went to get pizza. And he talked so much that I finished my entire pizza and he did not. He didn't even eat his pizza. And then at the end of the
Some
day,
people are nervous talkers, man.
well,
They
and
just-
I listened the whole time. I let him talk about his life. No big deal. I mean, he was probably nervous, but I was starving. So I was like, I'm going to eat my pizza. So I ate my whole pizza, and he didn't eat anything. So I was like, aren't you hungry? Like, aren't you going to eat? And he goes, no, I'm just going to take it to go. I was like, okay. But then we find out through friends of a friend that he said I talked the whole time. And that was when I went, wait, what?
Yeah, it's too small of a town to be talking smack people.
And you could even look at the security footage, and he would not shut up. I was like, dude, you have talked about yourself for the last 2 hours. Like,
Sounds like that would have been a situation like one of our listeners that needed the margarita.
Yeah, it was to the point where I kind of was like, do I even interject? I feel like I just need to let him vent or do whatever. But
and I understand some of y'all get nervous, and you just people in nervous situations either do one of two things: they either don't talk at all or they talk way too much. It sounds like this fellow was in that latter camp.
And these people, at the end of the day, it's like, this is why you date. You try to figure out if you and this other person are compatible. You try to figure out if there's certain things that you can put up with. And of course, on first dates, it's not always going to be that way. It takes time. But a lot of times people confuse compatibility with, like, it has to be perfect. It has to be right on.
No.
You have to. And I've learned in my short little years of dating that sometimes, in just not to get too serious, but like sometimes in what we believe spiritually, the devil will send you, everything you've ever wanted in the form of compatibility just to trick you. So a lot of times we need to make sure we watch that, especially on first dates when we see these red flags or we see these weird little stories or these little quirks that these people are doing sometimes, and you're wanting compatibility more so. You shouldn't even tolerate it.
So while we don't expect perfection on a first date, because we have blunders, I'm sure we've all done something embarrassing on a date. What are like 3 things that are deal breakers on a first date? Like there's no grace. Like if you do one of these 3 things, that's not just an accident. Like you're done. We're not getting a second date. What are like deal breakers?
I think it depends on where you're at emotionally and mentally. If you had asked me back in college, it probably would have been bad hygiene to the point where like he has to have been showered, shaved, or whatever. Basically look nice. It probably would have been, did he pick me up? Did he, all the things that are pretty much common sense and you should be doing anyway. But now, after knowing what we know, and you and I both as adults, I'm more like, I ask the questions on the first date of, do you have a relationship with Christ? And I say relationship with Christ, I don't say, do you believe? Because there's a huge difference. And I also don't say, do you go to church? But what ends up happening is they say, well, I sometimes go to church. I'm like, that's not what I asked. And so for me, I think, like you said, it depends where you're at in your phase of life and if you're wanting something serious. But for me, I don't date without intention. So if I ask you, how's your relationship with Christ, or what do you see yourself doing with a family? Do you see yourself having a family? And also, more so, where does he stand financially with a wife and a husband? If you don't ask these questions, then you're just kind of wasting each other's time. But again, different stages of life for different folks. I know some people are like, that's too hot and heavy for a first date. Maybe you're right. Maybe it can be saved for a 3rd or 4th date. But at the end of the day, those of you that aren't dating for a heartbreak and those of you that do date for intention, I'm with you. And don't change, because somebody else who's also dating for intention will also ask you those questions on a first date, and there you go. Maybe something beautiful will happen.
For me, mine's a little bit more simple. If you are rude to the waiter,
oh yeah,
we're done.
Being rude in any aspect is
we're done. Like, I don't care if the waiter is the worst waiter on the face of the earth. If you are rude or mean to them, or you act entitled, I don't have time for you.
The entitlement was what that first date did.
I think we need to flesh that one out, because that story cracks me up. Like,
well, at first he was very nice, and he was on time. Because we met at the restaurant because he was new, and I didn't want to
that's a tip, ladies. If it's a blind date or you're not sure, maybe have a getaway vehicle.
And this dude is like 6'7", so I was like, okay, like look at me go. I've always dated the short kings, the balding short kings. So I was like, now it's time for something new. And he comes to, we meet at the restaurant. He waits outside for me, great. And then we get a table, we get wine. It was a great date. But then he asked if we wanted to go two-stepping afterwards because he had concert tickets. And I was like, absolutely, I love dancing. Like, that's the way to my heart. So then that's where I started to see a little bit of the red flags come in, because he would just be very much like, no, don't sit there. No, sit here. Now, most of you think, okay, that's fine. And it was. But then it got to the point where even if I complimented a stranger on their hat, he thought I was being too friendly, and he thought that meant that I was flirting with that guy. And that guy thought maybe I was flirting, and then it opened up. He basically said that my red flag was that I was too friendly. And then when we got into the topic of family, faith, religion, and all that, I had asked him what his views were on a certain topic of people being gay and all that other stuff, which we're not opening that one up. But I just was curious.
That's his can of worms for later.
Yeah,
time.
I was just curious of his views, and he straight up said that if his son ever turned out to be gay, then. And he said something very disrespectful, and I immediately was like, this is not going to work. Like, absolutely. Yeah,
Lacey and I kind of have a policy. If you are racist, hateful towards a group of people, I don't care what your beliefs are, religion-wise. We are Christian, we through and through. I don't care if you cannot show love to another person. If you're horrible and hateful to any group of people, I can't hang with you. I'm sorry.
It is not our place to judge. It is not our place to act as God. It is our place to serve God. So yes, whereas most people see certain things as sinful and they like to put levels of sin at different stages, I look at it as I serve a Christ who forgives more than I've ever deserved to be forgiven. So what gives me the right to ever judge somebody else? And I want a partner that looks at things the same way. We can pray for people. We can always show support and love in different forms.
And this dude did not give his perspective in a loving way. It was hateful and derogatory.
It was very disrespectful. It was very to the point where if I ever heard anybody tell their child this, I would step in, even if it was at a grocery store.
It was derogatory.
It was so disrespectful.
It was really
bad. To me, that's just, like you said, disrespect, entitlement, not really knowing what you want out of life, and not really knowing exactly like what your relationship is with Christ. Because at the end of the day, we've got things. Life isn't perfect. Things change. Look at you went from being a lawyer to a mom, and I went from going from neuroscience to sales. Life can change in the blink of an eye. I'm not asking you to know exactly your day to day, but I want to know, where do you see yourself in terms of a family? Do you want a family? Do you want to share your life with that person? And I think a lot of people more so my age get that, but if you're younger, it's probably not something super serious.
Another thing that would make me question a second date is if we're on the first date and you're on your phone the whole time.
Oh, remember that one guy that did that to me? And he texted his mom?
Oh yeah, he was on the phone with his mom.
I forgot about that one. And I was like, I literally told him, I said, am I boring you? Because he was on his phone so much. And he goes, oh no, I was texting my mom. And I went, your mom, is everything okay? Like, my first thought was, is she okay?
Right.
And he goes, no, I'm just telling her about you. And I went,
bro.
I went, that's lovely. I just ate my entire
Can you tell her later?
Without talking to you. And another thing that's a turnoff for me is if I'm constantly asking questions and you're giving me, basically playing tennis against the drapes here. Like, you don't give me anything.
It's not an interview, it's a date.
You're giving me
Let's talk.
Like when someone says, how are you? Good. How was your day? Fine.
Elaborate.
I'm like,
or ask me a question.
Yeah, ask me questions. Let's get to know each other. We have to be able to have a good chemistry, and so I think if I have to pull teeth and play tennis against the drapes, I'm gonna go, yeah, where's the check? I'll pay for it at this point.
Come on. Some of this stuff is so obvious to me, though, that when people do it, like this bowl of horror, I can't believe people out there actually do this stuff. It just blows my mind.
Well, and people, I think each person has their own journey. They have their own journey with dating. And dating nowadays is the scariest thing. That is its own horror story.
I don't envy any of y'all.
And anybody that's just like me, going through the dating scene, even though I'm not dating at the moment, but the dating scene is hard. However, I think if you stay true to who you are, you stay true to what you want out of a partner, and you internally heal, I think you'll start to see some improvement in your dating. But again, don't always trust some other people and how they treat you. That's not everybody. So regarding your story and my story and this bowl of terror here, what is some advice that you would give to our viewers on going about dating today? Any kind of stories that they might have encountered that have now given them like PTSD towards dating in the future? Anything? What's some advice that they might be able to take away from it?
Well, number one, don't give up just because of a few bad dates. Like, I mean, you've got to kiss some toads before you find the prince. So number one, just don't give up. But number two, don't accept people's excuses. I know that's kind of vague, but I feel like it's that saying we hear a lot where people say, you know, if he wanted to, he would. And there's so much truth to that, because, you know, a lot of these stories about guys being too cheap or putting limits on the date or whatever it was, I look back at when my husband and I first started dating. Both of us broke as a joke. I mean, I was waiting on bar exam results. I was not an attorney yet. He was working at his uncle's warehouse. He was working through college. Like, just neither of us had a lot of money, but my husband did what he could to impress me and make sure that he was courting me properly. And that included showing up early and on time to every single date. It didn't matter where he was, what he was doing. He never made an excuse, and he showed up on time. That's huge, because you planned a date, you set a time, show up when you say you're going to show up. Start keeping your word. Like, look for men or women that keep their word. And even though he didn't have a lot of money, he gave me the best of everything he had. Like, he never put a limit on anything I wanted. He just found a way to make sure I had the best of what he could offer. And that's huge. Whoever you're dating, they may not have a lot, but are they giving you their best? Are they giving you, like, you know, everything they've got? And I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I found out, gosh, my husband and I have been together actually 7 years, and I found out just months ago, like this year, that we used to live in different towns, and anytime he knew I was coming in town, he would go to work early, like 4 a.m. early, to earn extra money to make sure our dates were nice. I didn't know that until this year, and we've been together 7 years. So my point with that is, he didn't do it expecting praise. I didn't find out about it for 6 years. Like, he just did it because I mattered. I was a priority, and he wanted to make sure that he was giving me his best. And so that's my point, is like, you know, people don't have to have a lot of money. They don't have to have a fancy job, but whatever they do have, are they making you a priority? Are they giving you their best? And can you trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do? And that starts with little things like showing up on time. And I know that's kind of a longer answer than what you probably asked for, but that's kind of the things I would look for on dates. You know, that's my advice anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I think every person that has ever dated goes through this. That we've all had a bad date. We've all had somebody where we're like, man, we thought we'd be compatible with them and it didn't work, or ghosting happened. And I know that's very common nowadays.
Speaking of Halloween things, ghosting.
Which, for me, ghosting, y'all, if men out there, if you even want to try to date me and you court me and you ghost me, you're done. I don't deal with the ghosting, because that automatically shows your character. That shows exactly what you think of me. And if you don't have the decency to say, hey, look, I just don't see it working, blah, 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 whatever your excuse is, then I can't respect you enough to a certain level, because I personally would never do that. I would always say, hey, look, I had a great time, but I didn't see us really on the same page. And
I can handle that.
Depending on where you're at in the dating phase, and I know, like you said, it's some people are at different levels, but I look at it as, for both men and women, imagine imagine if this is like you get to see and choose who your wife and who your husband is going to be. That is the most important decision you're ever going to make. So if you look at somebody and you don't see them being your husband or being the father of your children or being the wife and the mother of your children, then why would you date them? You see what I'm saying? Why would you even waste your time with this person if you don't see them being a wife, a mother, a husband, or a father? Because at that point now y'all are just kind of playing a game. And one piece of advice that I've learned just through my many dating horrors is that each date has allowed me to grow in my own way, but it's shown me what not to tolerate. It's shown me different levels of myself that I know I could improve on, because I'm not perfect either. But it definitely has shown me that on a first date, or even second dates and third dates, I start to see different patterns of things. And I think a lot of women confuse this when you start to go around that same mountain and you can't seem to figure out why your dating habits haven't changed, why you keep getting these bad guys or bad girls. It's not necessarily your type, it's your pattern. So if you start looking at your pattern and you're wondering, okay, this keeps happening, let me figure out why, you might have to do some internal reflection. But again, and I will say this because I think it is so important, the devil will send you pain disguised as your preference. And I think a lot of people get that confused, because when they think compatibility, or he's 6 foot, he's dark haired, he's beard, or oh, she's curvy and she's da 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 da.
So your preference meaning like your what you are attracted to?
Yeah,
okay.
And don't get me wrong, I 100% agree you should be attracted to your partner.
Yes.
How would you feel if your partner chose you but said, I don't find you attractive? That's kind of hurtful.
Yeah.
So yes, I understand to a degree, but if you're constantly going after this type of man or this type of woman, then that's probably not necessarily just your type, but it's also your pattern. And you might need to look at why you keep getting gravitated to this certain type of negative behavior, expecting a different result. And again, I will say this, and this might be repetitive, the devil will send you pain disguised as your preference. So please try to let that soak in. And like you said, same advice. A man will show you immediately how he feels about you. If a man is interested, especially knowing the way our brother went about dating his wife and how he overcame
Men
a lot
are
of
not
things.
complicated.
They're not complicated. Once they, I mean, Logan even said that. He was like, look, when a man wants you, you're not going to be confused.
No,
It's not
you
gonna
will
happen.
know.
So that would be my advice, essentially. But also, ladies and men, give yourself grace when you're dating. Because I remembered when I was figuring out what I wanted, who I wanted to be for my partner, and praying for my partner in dating, I also had to tell myself, you're doing okay even when you don't know where you're supposed to be right now. You have to be willing to give yourself that grace and not be like, is it me? It must be me, da da da. Even if it is you, let's just say, you're working on it. Do the steps you need to do to work on it. Don't be afraid to talk to other people about it. And my favorite piece of advice is have your bestie on speed dial.
Yes,
which
we
means
always
you get
do.
an scapegoat. And I've had to do that for my besties. I've had to act like I've broken a leg. I've had to act like my car broke down. We have hidden in restaurants. I mean,
We have code words.
Well, we have code words for sure, but have your bestie on speed dial. Make sure you're in a safe area. Make sure no matter what you do, you share your location. I don't care who it's with. But dating is scary, y'all, for both men and women out there. I am in it. I'm with you. But it doesn't have to be if you understand your patterns, your behaviors, what you want out of a relationship, and what you're willing to tolerate.
And for the guys out there who are trying to figure out women, do you think we expect perfection on a first date? Do you think our standards are that high? Because we've talked about a lot of first dates where we're like, oh, he did this and he did that. So do guys, should they just expect that we're gonna pick them apart on a first date, or do you think that's not accurate?
I feel like there's always a concern where a guy feels like he might get overly read, or there might be questions that are too intense on a first date. And I know I'm guilty of it, because you know me. I know what I want and I know what I bring to the table. So I might be that person that asks a little too much on the first date. But I've also just kind of been in the phase where I've been ghosted and let down and disappointed so many times. Like, I've been interrupted in my dating phase to be disappointed, which becomes infuriating. So I think whether you're a man or a female and you feel like that's going to happen, either way though, you should also be secure enough in yourself to handle it. So if you feel like you're being attacked or you feel like it's coming from a place of too much heaviness, then maybe you need to realize, what do I want out of dating? Do I really want to find my partner, or am I just looking for casualness here? Which I hope not, because then the other person's going to get their heart hurt, you know? But at the end of the day, figure out what you want, make those intentions clear. I think if you keep that communication clear, I truly believe communication is key. So if you don't communicate what your intentions are, then the other person can't understand. But also, are there any questions that, or anything that's too much you think to ask on a first date? What's something that you think it should be kept maybe for a second and third date?
That is tough, because part of me wants to say read the room, and what I mean by that is, if you're on a date with someone and you can tell they're willing to go into a deep conversation with you, maybe you have some more room to ask a deep question. But if you feel like they're keeping everything kind of light and casual and surface level, like know your audience, read the room. But like Lacey said, you get to a point in your dating journey that you get tired of games and you get tired of talking about the surface level small talk stuff. Sometimes that gets really old. And if you're looking for a partner to have deep conversations with, and you try to have a deep conversation and that person can't hang, well, then you know something about them. So the only things I would say are kind of creepy and weird is, I mean, I'm trying to think what's too much for a first date. I guess that's kind of dependent on the
politics,
person.
Mostly,
yeah.
Like politics, or maybe talking about how many kids they want, kind of thing.
Any sort of really controversial topic.
I feel like it's okay to talk about family or what you want as a family, not asking them necessarily, and maybe having them bring it up themselves, which is what I do a lot. Or sometimes if I know they're a little nervous, I'll try to lead it a little bit to let them be comfortable in knowing they can talk to me. And most of the time they have told me, like, I have never felt more comfortable on a date. Like, I was able to open up to you, and I'm like, good, that's the environment I want to also convey. But for a lot of people out there who might not know how to do that yet, or they're still learning it, or they're on the other spectrum where they hate being asked that question, maybe that just has to take some time. And I think maybe just wait for maybe the second and third date, see how you guys mesh well on the first date. Try not to talk about cookie cutter questions like your favorite color. But at the end of the day, you're going to know if you are meshing well with somebody. You're going to know if you want to see them again. And depending on where you're at in your dating stage, emotionally and mentally, I think that just kind of depends on how much intention you want to put on it.
That was always kind of a struggle for me, because anytime there's a first date, like, the prosecutor in me finds holes in answers. Like, I know when someone's not being truthful, and I find little holes in their story, and I want to attack that inconsistency, and I want to go after it, and I want to chase that rabbit hole. And it's a first date, so I have to constantly tell myself, Holly, back up, keep it light, chill. But that's neither here nor there. So I don't know. I don't know if there's anything too deep, as long as you think that the person you're talking to can handle that. So,
but yeah, all in all, I mean, we can sit here and kind of beat a dead horse, but dating obviously is hard. It's harder nowadays, I think, because of social media, and I think because of people's misconception of having more availability due to social media. And I think that is an absolute in and of itself episode. Yeah. But my advice at the end of the day would be, stay true to yourself 100%. If you are not ready to date, or you don't feel like you're ready to date, then leave people alone. Hands down.
Please.
Please. But also, if you are
get out of their way,
and you know what your intentions are, you know who you are, you have your life all, you've got it together, then don't give up, because there is somebody out there who is exactly like that, if not ready to be that person that also compliments you, not just hinders you. So keep trying. Ladies, have your best friend on speed dial. Men, put in some effort. Go back to the old school ways. There's nothing wrong in doing it. As a matter of fact, it's so admirable to do. But don't.
It's refreshing.
It's so refreshing. And if you feel like you're still unsure and you're still not quite sure what this person wants, I stand by this. Communication is key. Talk to each other, figure it out. Don't let these dating horror stories start to happen because you weren't clear on your intentions. That would be my all in all wrap it up, because dating horror stories can go on and on, but I think both of the advice that was given is super helpful, and I think if anybody is struggling with that right now, hopefully this gave you a sign.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the dating scene like me, or you're in the dating scene, or you're trying again, you're dipping your toes back in the water, those are some little techniques you can try, and maybe there's even something you can give if you're in the phase where you're dating somebody and you think marriage is a good next step, or you think fiance, whatever it is. But
yeah, and to wrap this up, I hope my brother isn't embarrassed by this, but if you're going out for Halloween, y'all stay safe, especially if you're going out on a first date for Halloween, because this popped into my head. I can think of one time when Lacey and our brother were out somewhere. I forget where they were hanging out, and Lacey was given a drink by some guy. You know, this happens a lot, right? Men buy women drinks, and Lacey didn't see it made, didn't know where it came from, so she was smart and said, "I'm not drinking that." Well, my brother said, "Shoot, free drink, I'll drink it." The poor guy got roofied. Luckily, everything was all right, but that roofie was intended for Lacey. And so my whole point with that is, like, be safe out there.
My angels are exhausted taking care of me.
Our poor
They
brother.
said, "Oh my God."
Our brother took one for the team unknowingly.
He did. Luckily,
poor guy.
He was safe. He was with us and her boyfriend at the time. So luckily, everything worked out well. But yes, ladies, please be safe. It is Halloween. Enjoy. Don't eat too much candy. We all know what happens. Try to stack that candy corn and send us pictures if you can.
If you do it, let us know.
Message us. That'd be pretty cool. But enjoy your holiday. Have fun. Be safe. Send us pictures if you want of your cute costumes. We'd love to see some costumes and costume ideas. I'm third wheeling for her and her husband and her daughter, so I am going to just pop in on their little Halloween idea, but we'll share those. We will share our cute pictures and our cute costume idea.
This was a fun episode. I enjoyed our bowl.
Thank you for the input, and we'll be back for some November episodes, and if you guys want to keep commenting and sharing your lovely ideas, we appreciate it. But Holly, any other last minute comments on dating, or just good luck?
Best of luck to y'all. It is a jungle out there. I'm so glad I'm married and I'm not in the dating world anymore, because from what I've seen, so many people are garbage. But there's a lot of really great people out there still, and I hope all of y'all find each other. And again, like we said, you know, we have multiple different platforms. Please like, comment, subscribe. That's what tells us we're doing the right thing, we're on the right track, helps our channel grow. And as always, if you have ideas you want to hear us talk about, send them our way. We love that.
All of it.
It really jumps to the top of our priority list when it's something requested by y'all. So send those in. We'd love to hear it. Have a happy and safe Halloween, and we will see y'all in episode 7 in November.
Woohoo.
Bye.
Bye.